So update 1.1.1.5 has finally dropped for Battlefield 6. I gotta tell you, we really need to work on these update names because this just ain't gonna do it. But no, this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is probably the update that a lot of us have been really waiting for. And in all honesty, it's the update that I think many of us felt as though we were rug pulled from with update 1.1.1.0 when Season 1 dropped. This update brings forth a relatively small amount of fixes to the game that are arguably going to be the most impactful that the game has seen yet. Things such as the recon drone exploit, the lock-on missile exploit, the bug gunplay that saw Dispersion acting in ways that it clearly shouldn't have done. The question now is, were we rug pulled once again, or did this update actually land? And after 3 hours of game time with it so far, folks, I have to be honest that on raw first impressions here, and just based on really testing as much as I could on my live stream today, I think this might have been a pretty good update. And I want to start off in going over the gunplay here and the gunplay changes that were made, because I feel as though these were certainly, you know, the bugbears and just the general bugs that we were all experiencing most of the time. I mean, it's the gunplay of a first-person shooter. If this very core tenet of the game is bugged, then it feels muddy to work with. It feels sluggish and it feels unresponsive, which is not how you want a first-person shooter like Battlefield to feel. And to be abundantly clear here, no, this is not some, you know, rip and replace kind of update that sees the entirety of the gunplay system changing. No, these are small, nuanced bug fixes that have really amped up the readability of the gunplay since the update, and I've got to admit, I think DICE have actually really landed on these fixes. The biggest one here is that they fixed an issue where dispersion would be higher than intended when going from sprint to firing in aim down sights. We obviously picked up on this a couple of weeks after the game's launch, and it's finally been actioned on. And as a result of that, guys, I'm happy to report that honestly, post-update, this is the most confident I have felt in the game's gunplay since the launch, and arguably since the beta of the game. As someone who does like to play a slightly more aggressive playstyle, I felt like I was far less likely in my session of playing the game post-update to experience this issue that took the control out of my hands in a way that it didn't expect me to. Weapon dispersion and weapon bloom in Battlefield games is something that you can most certainly compensate for and understand when it behaves as intended. And obviously with this bug where it was, you know, just flailing your weapon around like nobody's business as soon as you aim down sights after coming out of a sprint, yeah, it obviously wasn't readable, it was difficult to work with. That has now been fixed, and because that has been fixed, the game is far more consistent for you to work with when you are coming out of a sprint, and that has completely changed, for me at least, how good the game feels to get into infantry firefights with. I do need to sort of test the impact of this across more weapons, but of the weapons that I really focused on testing, which was mainly assault rifles and LMGs, the categories that really suffered the most from this bug, I can say, hand on heart, it feels a lot smoother to work with post-update here. The M60, the SOR 556, the B36, the AK4D in particular, even the NVO, all felt a lot more consistent to use, especially when coming out of a sprint stance, which was, again, a much needed change. It just makes the game feel that little bit more consistent to work with, which I like. Further to that, DICE have also tuned landing animations to reduce excessive camera and weapon movement when aiming down sights, improving visual stability during and after a landing. This update also resolves instances where ADS aim could be displaced when sliding. Now, obviously, Battlefield 6 to this day has been a game that has very much rewarded cover-to-cover sort of head-glitching style of infantry gameplay, right? Movement mechanics have been more about the utility of movement and less about, you know, using it as an aggressor tool, if you will. But I'm also happy to say, at least for me as a more aggressive-based player, that post-update, these changes have tipped the needle ever so slightly back in the opposite direction. I actually found that I could jump peek certain corners, and I could slide around corners and still be able to get my crosshair onto target with a little bit more consistency than what was possible prior to the update. Now, to set the scene a bit and to manage expectations, if you will, no, this does not turn the game into a movement shooter, not by any stretch of the imagination. animation, sliding around willy-nilly in Battlefield 6 is still going to see you punished more often than not, just with how the game is designed more broadly. But the devs, I think, have taken a little bit of the penalty that was associated with it, mainly around, getting your sight to eye accurately and, actually being able to land shots as you needed to do so. But it's still far from the most effective way to play the game, in my opinion. I still think that moving cover to cover and sort of playing carefully with head glitches and, using cover to gain the advantage on opponents is still going to be the superior way to play infantry in this game. But the more aggressive-minded infantry players in the game are going to have a few more tools under their belt now to utilize with some degree of success, in my opinion. In all honesty, guys, I actually think that the changes that have been made here actually tilt the game back towards, how the gunplay we experienced in the beta felt. The bloom is still very much present in this build of the game, and I think it's even more present under sustained bursts of fire, which I welcome because I thought the gunplay spread in the beta under sustained fire might have been a little bit too laser beamy. I think DICE have managed to find a little bit of a more of a happy medium ground here, where in which, yes, your weapon is going to be far more accurate and consistently accurate when coming out of different movement states at the initial point of a burst, but you're also just not going to be able to hold down the trigger here and expect to beam somebody out at extended ranges. That's just not how Battlefield's gunplay works, and it looks like despite these changes, the devs have remained sort of, consistent to that core tenet. Anyway, very keen to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments on how the gunplay is feeling for you post-update. I think I'm going to certainly go away and make another video that sort of speaks to the weapons that I think everyone should be trying to use now post-update, given that, the changes have definitely improved the consistency of a bunch of the guns in the game now, which is great to see. But that, of course, wasn't the only major fixes of the update, guys. As we said, the recon drone bug, where in which you could just sort of send yourself to the heavens by hitting, the recon drone with the sledgehammer, no longer exists. Hallelujah. About bloody time. How this bug was not vaulted sooner, I will never know, but we now have a permanent fix. The recon drone gets to stay in the game, the sledgehammer gets to stay in the game, and now the rooftop campers of Iberian Offensive, Manhattan, and Cairo are no more. My hope now is that the map flow on these maps in particular starts to feel a whole lot better than what it did without these pesky sods abusing the shit out of this bug. And while I knew there were arguments in the community for, oh, but it's part of the sandbox, it's a feature, not a bug, don't give it up. Nope, screw you, it killed map flow. Thank God it's gone. So yeah, that was a massive change in the right direction as well. I haven't had a chance to play these maps on Breakthrough yet, which is where the most egregious examples of this taking place were found, but I'm hoping that Manhattan and Cairo do feel a lot better to play on as a result, and I can confirm that after playing Iberian on Escalation, there was no rooftop camping there, which again improved the flow of the mode big time. Another massive fix here that I know vehicle players in particular are going to be absolutely loving here, guys, is that the locked missiles that were laser guided did not get counted as expected when met with countermeasures such as flares. That has now been fixed. All ATGMs and just general lock-on missiles that were locking onto painted targets and ignoring countermeasures no longer exists. I actually put this to the test in a helicopter game on Mirak Valley, and I was able to successfully, on multiple occasions, deal with incoming missiles and, simply continue on my way. It's going to go a long, long way to especially improving the air game of Battlefield 6. And to be fair, the air game in Battlefield 6 needs a lot of work in general. Silk actually made a very, very good rant video as of late that goes over a lot of the intricacies and the general problems with that side of the game right now. I'm going to leave a link to his video in the description down below. Go support my boy. It's one hell of a passionate rant from one of the authorities in the air game of the Battlefield community. But the fact that we finally got a proper fix to this bug now is hopefully going to mean that the air game is at least a little bit more consistent in the countermeasure department, and players are actually able to, reliably rely on their flares and, play according to that, which again, consistency in understanding when countermeasures are working and when they are not is a really, really key part of Battlefield, a part of the rock, paper, scissors gameplay. It's good to see that's been officially fixed here. It should have been fixed a long, long time ago, but better late than never, hey? So yeah, folks, I'll be honest, I've only spent 3 hours with the game since the launch of the update, but I will be honest in saying that I liked what I saw. I'm gonna have to spend a bit more time with it over the few coming days just to make sure that, there's no placebo in effect here, but the first impressions, which is exactly what this is, are very, very good. If I have not succumbed to a placebo effect here, I'm actually gonna do a follow-up video very, very shortly that goes over some of the weapons I recommend you guys revisit as a result of these bug fixes, weapons that, were a little bit rough in the eyes of sort of, you know, the sprint to fire bug and stuff like that. The weapons that I think have benefited the most, I'm going to shine a spotlight on in a couple of videos, so I can't wait to get that one out to you guys as well. Make sure you subscribe for that, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to backhand the like button, as it does go a long way to supporting the channel. Let me know in the comment section down below what your thoughts are on the update. Do you like it? Do you think it's been a misstep? Do you think there are things that have not been fixed as was intended? Leave your thoughts down below. In my view, it's really good to see that we're finally getting some fixes from DICE here, and that the game is taking steps in the right direction to polish itself. We've still got a very, very long way to go in my view, but this is a really good step that, in my view, actually bumps this game's residual rating up a little bit here and makes it more enjoyable to play, especially as an infantry main. But closing thoughts and rambles aside, guys, I will see you all in the next video. Peace out. Have a good one, my friends. Talk to you all next time.